Warning: contains somewhat mature content, including language, brief violence, and mild sexual themes, and may not be suitable for people under age 14.
I was almost sure I knew why he always wanted to kiss me, but I pretended not to know because I was scared. I was terrified, actually, about what might happen if I figured it out and accepted it. Rain began playing with my foot with his, just like he had yesterday at lunch.
Cole, today during third period, go to the bathroom 15 minutes in, okay? Go to the bathroom nearest to our English class.
Huh? Why? I asked, looking at him curiously. Rain smiled.
Just trust me, okay?
He replied. I couldn't help but trust him. Just then the sub woke up to find Ricky and Lionel drawing on his face. He practically screamed at them.
All right, you have 3 seconds to start running around the gym, or else I'll make sure you have no legs to run with. Get going, all of you!
He shouted, and Ricky and Lionel began running around the gym, as did the rest of the class. Oh, I don't want to run, those stupid jerks, I said, starting to stand up, but Rain grabbed me and pulled me to lie under the bleachers. He lay there as well, facing me.
You don't want to run? Who says you have to?
He said, smiling. I smiled back at him, and we laid there for the rest of the period while the rest of the class ran around the gym. We got up only when it was time to go back in and get dressed. Luckily, no one noticed we had been hiding. We changed back into our clothes and went into the hall to wait for the bell to ring. I saw the sub walk out of the gym. He had a mustache, a monocle, a unibrow, and freckles drawn on his face with Sharpie. All the students laughed as he walked by.
How much you want to bet he won't be teaching here ever again?
Rain said to me quietly. I laughed just as the bell rang. He waved to me, then held up 3 fingers, walking away to go to his class. I knew exactly what he meant. In math, Miss Miller told us to get into groups for a little activity she had planned for us. Since I didn't have any friends, I just sat at my desk, watching everyone get into their groups. Miss Miller came over to me. Cole, it's been a few months since you've been in this class, she said. Haven't you made friends with anybody yet? I shook my head, feeling sort of ashamed. Miss Miller nodded. Well, I know you hate him, but why don't you go into Sean's group? I looked over at Sean, who was sitting with only one other person. She was his sister, Natalie. She was actually very nice to everyone, and was the junior class president. I sighed, going over to them and sitting down. Miss Miller put me in your group, is that okay? I asked quietly, not meeting either of their eyes. Sean opened his mouth to reply, but Natalie interrupted. Sure, Cole, she said. I think it's lovely that you're in our group. Sean snickered.
Lovely? Did you seriously just say lovely?
He asked, sounding highly amused. Natalie frowned. It's my word of the day, she said. I got it off my calendar. Sean laughed, shaking his head.
My word of the day is insular, as in narrow-minded, as in that's what you are,
he said. He always sounded so high and mighty when he used a strange word. Natalie crossed her arms and glared at him. Miss Miller came around and gave us all a worksheet that we were to work on together. I'm not the best at math, so I sorta just followed what Sean and Natalie were doing instead of really doing it on my own. We got finished quite early because Sean was doing most of the work. He was a genius when it came to math. He sat back and looked at me.
So, Cole,
he said.
Rain sure has been spending a lot of time with you.
I blushed and stared at my paper. So? I said quietly, a little scared. Ooh, Rain, that really hot guy in my history class? He's so gorgeous, said Natalie, giggling madly. Sean glared at her, then looked back at me.
So, you're taking him away from his true associates,
he replied to me.
He's in our faction, Cole. He's popular, unlike you. So try not to divert him from us, all right? He doesn't need a reprobate like you cramping his style.
God, he used a lot of big words. Natalie smacked him on the shoulder. Be nice and let Cole make friends, she said. She reached over and set her hand on mine. You should hang out with whomever you like, Coley, she said to me. I blinked at the new nickname. Thanks, Natalie, I said, feeling quite uncomfortable. She was very nice, but I didn't like her too much. She was too optimistic. Just then she blushed and retracted her hand. Sean sneered at her.
Have you got a crush on little Coley, Natalie? He asked.
Natalie gasped and began throwing a bunch of her possessions at him, which I thought was completely unnecessary. Finally the bell rang and I went off to my third period class, which was my only elective, film class. I wasn't that interested in it. I just took it for the credits. Today, we were watching a movie called The Crucible, which was based off that play about the Salem witches. We were told to take notes on the camera angles at certain points in the movie. 15 minutes into the class, I took the hall pass and went out of the room, heading towards the bathroom closest to my English class. I didn't make it to that bathroom, however, for I was suddenly pulled into a nearby broom closet. I nearly had a heart attack, looking around to see who had kidnapped me. It was Rain. He turned on a little light bulb in the closet to give us some light.
Sorry, did I scare you again?
He asked. I nodded, looking around the closet. What are we doing here? I asked. I thought you told me to go to the bathroom. Rain nodded.
I did, but only so I could pull you into this closet,
he replied.
I can't risk someone walking into the bathroom and hearing our conversation.
I frowned, getting very confused. What are you talking about? I asked. Rain brushed his hair off of his face, quiet for a moment. Then he gently pressed me against the wall and kissed me again. I was stunned so much that I couldn't kiss him back this time. When he broke it, I stared at him. Rain, what? I said, but he put his finger on my lips. Shh, he said.
Have you thought about it, Cole? Whether you're really straight or not?
I frowned behind his finger, feeling nervous.
I don't think you are,
he continued.
If you were, you wouldn't kiss me back when I kissed you. In fact, you'd push me away when I tried to kiss you. If you were straight, you'd hate the kind of attention I give you.
I pulled my head away from his hand so I could speak. I can't be homosexual, Rain, I said exasperatedly. I told you what my parents would do to me. Rain nodded.
They don't have to know,
he said, but I shook my head. They'd find out, I replied. They'd find out because of my teachers and classmates. There's no way I could keep that a secret.
And yet you've been keeping it a secret, even from yourself,
he said sardonically. I frowned and hung my head. Suddenly, a terrifying thought came to mind, and I looked back up at him. No. No way, I said. I know what you're trying to do. Rain blinked, clearly not understanding. I bet Nate's group suspects that I'm in the closet, and they sent you to find out if I am or not. And if I admit I'm homosexual, you're going to go tell them and join them in making fun of me even more than they already do. You want to ruin my reputation, or lack thereof. Rain frowned, then stroked my hair, trying to calm me.
No, that's not it at all, he said. Listen, do you want to know the reason why I'm even at this school?
I shrugged. Sure, I said, trying to sound uninterested.
I went to a private Christian school that everyone in my family had gone to, he said. My entire family is full of hardcore Christians, and I was born into that. In my sophomore year of high school, I found out I was homosexual. It was very hard for me because, just like Catholics, Christians are very against homosexuality. Everyone at that school liked me for my looks and my attitude, right up until I let it slip to my best friend that I was homosexual. He told his girlfriend, who was a gossiper, and she told everyone. From then on, I was the most hated person in school. And for what? Liking the same gender as my own? Is that so bad? It says in the Bible that God loves his children, all the same. But if that were true, don't you think he wouldn't care if his children happened to not be attracted to the opposite sex?
I listened to him, lips parted slightly, from how upset he sounded. Rain sighed deeply, looking to the floor.
That's why. Not only did I come to this school to start over, but I also became an atheist.
I frowned. You don't believe in God anymore? I asked. Rain nodded.
I don't have a reason to,
he replied.
If he doesn't accept me for who I am, then I won't accept him. Cole, I'm not trying to tell you to stop believing in God. I'm trying to tell you to find yourself.
I shook my head quickly. I can't, Rain, I just can't. I was starting to feel frustrated. Rain backed away from me, frowning.
Fine. I really like you, Cole, but if you seriously don't want to be with me, then I'll find someone who does,
he said. He sounded seriously upset.
Wait a few minutes before leaving this closet.
And with that, he left, kind of in an angry sort of way. I stood there against the wall, right where he left me. I felt very upset, like I was going to cry. I held it back, though, and waited 5 minutes before leaving the closet and going back to my class. I went through the rest of third period and all of fourth period feeling very sick with depression. I was scared of what was going to happen now, even if I didn't know what it was. Was Rain really gonna find some guy to go out with him just because I refused to admit I was homosexual? Thinking about it made me feel even more sick. When it came to be lunchtime, I felt too depressed to even eat, so I just sat down. I was looking forward to seeing Rain and try to talk to him, but then I saw him sit next to Sean at the popular table. I stared at that table, not believing my eyes. I watched Rain talk to the group of popular guys, then he turned to talk specifically to Sean. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I thought I saw Rain's eyes flicker over to me. It must have been my imagination, however, because as soon as I blinked, Rain was looking at Sean again. Suddenly, Sean and Rain kissed. It scared the crap out of me, and I nearly choked on my own saliva. When the two broke apart, they smiled at each other, and I saw Nate roll his eyes. I felt sick, and not just depressed, but literally sick to my stomach. I felt my throat tighten up and my eyes water, and I got up from the table and ran to the bathroom. I went into a stall and closed the door, turning and throwing up right into the toilet bowl. Most of the contents was stomach acid because I hadn't eaten much that morning. I threw up until my stomach was empty, then just sat on the floor of the stall and cried. I hadn't cried so much since the day my mom smacked me for wearing a pink shirt. I ended up going to the nurse and calling my mom to pick me up. She took me home and I went straight to my bed to lie down. I told her I had the stomach flu, and she brought me some soup. I didn't even touch it. I wasn't at all hungry, even though my stomach was growling like a bear. I just lay in my bed, staring at my ceiling until I fell asleep from misery and stinging eyes. I woke up momentarily a few hours later to my mom coming in and taking the untouched soup from my room. I opened my eyes to look at the clock. It was 5 in the evening. I turned on my side, facing away from the clock, thinking about Rain and Sean's kiss, then crying myself back to sleep. I woke up to my alarm beeping loudly, and I nearly threw it against my wall. I simply just pressed the button, though, deciding that throwing it wasn't going to make anything better. I sat up in bed and saw a bunch of folded clothes at the end of it. My mom had done my laundry for me. I got out of bed and put on some jeans and a blue button-up shirt, then went into the bathroom to brush my teeth and hair. When I was done, I went into the kitchen to get some breakfast, but I stopped. I sort of stared at the fridge for a few moments before simply leaving the kitchen to go back into my room to grab my backpack. I left the house without eating. I went out and waited for the bus, getting on and getting a seat by myself. I was happy I could sit alone today, so no one would have to endure listening to my stomach growl the whole way to school. When we got to school, I got off the bus and went inside as usual. I started to walk around to wait for the bell to ring, but I lost my enthusiasm for it and just sat down next to the wall. It's the first time I'd ever just sat down before school started. While sitting there, I saw 2 pairs of feet walk past me. I looked up and watched Rain and Sean walking by, hand in hand. It never crossed my mind that Sean would be homosexual, but then again, he kept to himself and his schoolwork most of the time. It made me feel even more depressed. Finally, the first bell rang and I went into the locker room. I was about to unlock my locker, but I got tired of it and went straight to the gym. I knew I'd get marked down for not dressing out, but I didn't care. I wasn't even going to participate anyway, so what was the point? I went into the gym and sat on the floor, pulling my knees up to my chest and setting my chin on them. A minute later, the rest of the students came in, all dressed and everything, and sat down. I saw Rain look at me curiously, but Sean poked him and they sat down together. It made me feel sick again. Mr. Frey, who was back today, was very disappointed that I didn't dress out. It was a first for me, after all. He sent me to go sit on the bleachers while everyone else played basketball. I sat there watching my team. They were better off without me anyway. Everyone was better off without me. When it was time to go back into the locker room, I just went straight into the hall. I waited there and then watched Rain and Sean come out with Nate, Ricky, and Lionel. Nate elbowed Rain. "So, did you change your mind about the party, Rain?" he asked. Rain shook his head.
Sean and I are going to go see a movie,
he replied. Nate blinked.
"Sean, I thought you were going to the party," he inquired.
Sean shrugged.
I'd rather go see this movie,
he said.
It's supposed to be exceptionally admirable.
Nate sighed.
"Whatever, dude, you're so boring now that you're gay,"
he said, and the bell rang. I felt that tightness in my throat again. I didn't want to see Sean in math today, so I went to the nurse's office. I planned on staying there for just second period, but I ended up staying until lunch.